Part 3. It was almost 5 years since Arjuna had departed. Lomasha told the Pandavas that they could expect Arjuna to return shortly. Lomasha thus instructed the Pandavas to go to a higher part of the mountain in order to meet Arjuna. Taking up their few possessions, and with Daumya, Lomasha, and a handful of other Brahmanas accompanying them, the Pandavas climbed to a high plateau on Gandhamadana. And just as the celestial voice had predicted, they came to the ashrams of the royal sage Vrishabharva and the great rishi Agastya. Remaining with them for some time, the Pandavas received spiritual instructions from them. Agastya told them that it would not be possible for them to go further up the mountain. Above here is the path to the higher planets. No man can go there unless one is entirely pure and sinless. Along that path, you will find the gods' sporting grounds. Even from here, we can hear the sound of their kettle drums, beenas, and the small drums known as taboors with one head of soft calfskin. I have been to the summit of this mountain, and I have seen the gods for myself. I have also seen the Gandharvas, Vidyadharas, Kimpurushas, and other heavenly beings consorting with Apsaras. The great lord of wealth, Kuvera, could often be seen there, being worshipped by the best of the yakshas. At that time, this entire region resounds with the melodic chanting of the Samaveda. Daityas, Danavas, and Siddhas, all alike, join in the worship of that illustrious Lokapala, Kuvera. So, I suggest that you brothers should reside peacefully at my ashram until Arjuna returns. And especially you, Bhimasena, do not be restless here. Rather, you should live at ease. Be peaceful. The time will come soon enough for you to display your strength. Without doubt, you will crush your enemies and govern the earth. Surveying the region, the Pandavas felt as if they had already gone to the heavenly planets. Every kind of tree was present, all of them blossoming and bending with the weight of ambrosial fruits. Sweetly singing birds played in the lush foliage, while peacocks, with their tails outspread, appeared to be the crowns of trees. The lakes teemed with waterfowl and were adorned with lotuses, and the air rang with the hum of maddened bees who drank the nectar falling from the lotus cups. The brothers were fanned by a balmy breeze which carried celestial fragrances and fine drops of cooling spray. There were countless varieties of animals, all of them peaceful and harmless. One day, as the Pandavas and Draupadi were seated on the shore of a lake, they saw the great eagle Garuda descending toward its waters. The bird blazed with a golden effulgence. His huge winged beats created a wind which tossed the forest and sent showers of blossoms to the ground. Trees closest to the lake were crushed by the very force of his descent, and the mountain even trembled. Garuda flew with the speed of the wind, and before the very eyes of the Pandavas, Garuda carried away a mighty Naga serpent who was living in the lake. Having taken hold of this Naga in his talons, Garuda rose high into the sky above the mountain and then disappeared into the distance. As Garuda went north, the wind from his wings blew many flowers from the mountaintop down to where the Pandavas were sitting. Seeing the celestial flowers of 5 colors, Draupadi said to Bhima, "O best of the Bharatas, see here these exquisite blossoms which have fallen from the mountain peaks. Surely they have come from Kuvera's abode. O hero, how I wish to see that heavenly place. But alas, it is heavily guarded by Rakshasas, Yakshas, and other powerful beings. Oh, if only Arjuna were here. When Agnidev burned the Kandava, your invincible brother held at bay the entire host of gods along with their celestial armies." And so in this way, Draupadi playfully taunted Bhima. Bhima frowned as Draupadi went on talking. "Surely you two are capable of standing against any foe, human or celestial. O Bhimasena, send all the Rakshasas fleeing in the 10 directions by the mere force of your arms. Let all of us approach this mountain peak without fear. I have cherished this thought in my mind for some time. Protected by your prowess, I long to see this mountain top." Bhima looked like a wounded bull. He could not stand Draupadi's words. Without delay, Bhima rose up, took his weapons, and made his way up the mountainside. Moving with the gait of a lion, that mighty man, as tall as a young shala tree, having a complexion of burnished gold, with broad shoulders and a neck like that of a conch shell, Bhima rushed with full force toward the sheer rock face which led to the mountain's summit. Quickly, Bhima found a narrow passage by which he could scale the mountain, which was inaccessible to ordinary men. Grasping hold of creepers and crevices within the rocks, Bhima climbed swiftly. As he reached the summit, Bhima came to a vast plateau where he beheld the abode of Kuvera. It was adorned with glowing golden and crystal buildings of celestial design. The heavenly mansions were surrounded by high golden walls encrusted with gems of every color. Bhima leaned on the end of his bow and gazed in wonder at the city. Ramparts and towers stood all around it, and it was graced by huge gates and rows of tall flagstaffs, their colorful pennants fluttering in the wind. In the gardens outside the city lay heaps of gems, and along its walls garlands were hung. The trees were beyond human imagination, and around them Bhima saw many beautiful apsaras dancing to the strains of heavenly music. But the sight of Kuvera's opulence sorrowed Bhima as he remembered the wealth Yudhishthir had once possessed. Then Bhima again became angry as he recalled Duryodhana's crimes. Bhima then took out his conch shell and blew it with the full force of his lungs. The sound echoed all around the mountain and struck terror into the hearts of all creatures. From their ramparts, the startled Yaksha and Rakshasa guards saw Bhima standing with his bow, sword, and mace. They swarmed out in the thousands and rushed towards him, shouting in anger. Their upraised clubs, maces, swords, javelins, spears, and axes seemed to blaze up as they advanced. Bhima shot numerous arrows at them, cutting off their weapons and striking down the Rakshasas who were on the ground or in the sky. Bhima was hemmed in by the Yakshas on all sides. He now appeared like the sun, enveloped by clouds. Without fear, Bhima took out his sword and severed the arms, legs, and heads of his assailants. As he fought with the roaring Yakshas, Bhima was drenched in showers of blood. Although they attacked him from every side, the celestial fighters did not see Bhima flinch or become discouraged. Mangled by Bhima's weapons, they fell back in fear, uttering frightful cries of distress. They dropped their weapons and fled in all directions. The commander of the Yaksha army, Maniman, addressed his fleeing troops with anger. "How will you tell your master that a single man has routed vast numbers of Yakshas?" Armed with darts, clubs, javelins, and maces, the powerful Maniman stood as firm as a mountain, and his voice boomed like a drum. "O human, stay and fight! Having come to the abode of the Lord of Wealth, you shall now be able to see also the abode of Yamaraj." And with a terrible yell, Maniman rushed Bhima, who instantly released 3 arrows, each of which pierced Maniman in the side. Maniman then hurled his mace at Bhima, and it flew towards him like a flash of lightning. Bhima fired arrows which struck the mace with force, but were unable to stop it. Quickly, Bhima raised his own mace and smashed the Yaksha's mace, as it fell toward him with the force of a thunderbolt. Now, seeing his mace broken, Maniman threw an iron club. As the golden-handled club shot through the air, it roared and sent forth bright orange flames and showers of sparks. Bhima moved aside, but the club caught him on the arm, wounding him severely. Maniman shouted triumphantly as Bhima fell back for a moment. But soon Bhima recovered and again raised his mace, the Shaika. He rushed at Maniman with a tremendous cry. The Yaksha hurled a huge dart, and it screamed through the air, glowing like the sun. Bhima then whirled his mace and knocked the blazing dart away. Now, Bhima resolved to kill his adversary without further delay. He whirled the Shaika over his head and rushed toward the Yaksha. With a shout that reverberated around the mountain, Bhima hurled his mace at Maniman. It struck him full on the chest with a fearful crash and split his heart into 2. The Yaksha fell to the ground like a palm tree flattened by a hurricane. Seeing their commander lying dead, the surviving Yakshas and Rakshasas fled. Bhima stood alone on the mountain plateau, looking around for any further attack. The sound of the battle had reached Yudhishthir. Hearing the mountain caves resound with loud war cries and other sounds, Yudhishthir and his brothers became anxious. They learned from Draupadi that Bhima had again gone up the mountain. Yudhishthir took the twins and quickly went after Bhima. They ascended the mountain and came to the plateau where Bhima was standing. Bhima stood looking just like Indra after he had slain all the Dandavas in battle. Bhima was surrounded by the dead bodies of numerous Yakshas and Rakshasas. Many others lay on the ground, still moving, their limbs smashed by Bhima. Yudhishthir and the twins ran over to their brother and embraced him. The 4 Pandavas then sat down on the mountaintop. Looking around at the celestial region, Yudhishthir reprimanded Bhima. "O son of Kunti, there is no excuse for your actions here. One should never offend the king or the gods. We are living in Kuvera's domain, and surely you have given him offense by your rashness. Such behavior is as unworthy of you as untruth is to the ascetics. So if you have any regard for me, then do not commit such acts again." Bhima looked down in shame. It pained him to see his brother so upset. Yudhishthir pondered what to do. Kuvera was the powerful lord of the Yakshas, and he was a universal guardian. So if Kuvera had taken any offense, then their position would be precarious indeed. They could not avoid the all-knowing Kuvera, and there was no question of facing him in battle. Better they try to pacify him in some way. No doubt, Kuvera would make his appearance to survey the damage. The four Pandavas sat in silence, looking themselves like gods descended to the mountain summit. In the meantime, the defeated Yaksha and Rakshasa soldiers had run to Kuvera, informing him of what had occurred. Hearing that his commander and friend Maniman had been killed, along with numerous other fighters, Kuvera became angry. He then ordered his attendants to yoke his chariot. Kuvera's servants immediately fetched his chariot, drawn by 100 horses, the color of dark clouds, each adorned with golden garlands and gems. The horses neighed loudly and moved their heads upwards as the divine Kuvera ascended the chariot, being eulogized by Gandharvas and Charanas. 1,000 principal Yakshas, looking like so many mountains, wearing golden armor and equipped with weapons, followed Kuvera as his chariot moved off through the skies. The celestial chariot seemed to swallow up the atmosphere and draw down the sky as it ranged across the firmament. And as he traveled, Kuvera pondered Bhima's second assault on the Celestials. How dare this human act so insolently toward the gods? But of course, Bhima was no ordinary human. He was the brother of Yudhishthir, and Yudhishthir was himself Dharmaraj. He and his brothers had all taken birth only to fulfill the purpose of the gods themselves. But just then, Kuvera recalled a curse uttered long ago by the powerful rishi, Agastya. Of course, how else could the mighty Maniman have been killed? Bhima had simply become the instrument of Agastya's curse. Kuvera's frown changed to a smile as he approached the summit where the Pandavas were seated. The Pandavas then saw the celestial chariot approach. Their hair stood on end as they rose quickly with folded palms to greet Kuvera. The chariot stayed in the air near the Pandavas, who stood looking apprehensively upwards. The Yakshas who accompanied Kuvera alighted on the mountain summit like so many great birds. Seeing the Pandava brothers looking across at him with reverence, Kuvera became pleased, while the Yaksha warriors saw Kuvera's mood and stood with indifference, their weapons lowered. The four Pandava brothers approached Kuvera and bowed before him. Thousands of Rakshasas with huge bodily structures and ears like javelins then approached and surrounded Kuvera. Kuvera appeared like a fresh youth. He wore a wreath of flowers on his head and garlands of celestial flowers. In his hands he held a noose and a sword. A large bow hung over his shoulder. Bhima, still clutching his mace, gazed at him without fear. Kuvera smiled at Bhima. Then he turned to Yudhishthira and spoke. "O Partha, we are well aware that you are always thinking of the welfare of all creatures. Therefore, dwell on this mountain peak without fear. Nor should you be angry toward Bhimasena, for his killing of the Yakshas and Rakshasas was ordained by destiny. Indeed, realizing this, I have become pleased with Bhima rather than angry. And as for you, Bhima, O child, O best of the Kurus, I am not angry with you. Now, put down your weapons. I know, for Draupadi's pleasure, you have acted rashly and disregarded the gods, relying only on the strength of your arms. Nevertheless, I am pleased with you. For today you have delivered me from the terrible curse of Agastya, and that you should insult me in this way was already preordained. Therefore, I attach no blame to you." Now, Yudhishthira's curiosity was aroused, and so he asked Kuvera to explain the curse. "O Lord of wealth, I am indeed surprised that having angered the glorious Agastya, that you were not immediately burned to ashes. O child, let me tell you what happened. I was once traveling through the skies toward Kushavati, where there was an assembly of the gods about to take place. Hundreds of thousands of yakshas accompanied me, headed by Maniman. And as we crossed the Yamuna River, we saw the effulgent Agastya sitting on its banks practicing asceticism. But out of sheer arrogance and foolishness, Maniman spat on his head. I immediately went before the rishi to apologize, but Agastya was burning with anger and thus uttered a curse. Since this evil-minded one has insulted me in your presence, he will meet with his end along with his forces at the hands of a mere human being. And you shall be grieved by this, but you will also be absolved of the sin when you meet that special man." Having now seen Bhima, I am free from Agastya's curse. I invite you, Yudhishthira, to remain for some days in my abode on this mountain summit. And I also give you Pandavas news of Arjuna in heaven. Soon he will be returning. Oh, my dear Yudhishthira, you should ensure that this brother of yours does not give way to rashness too often. For if you do not check Bhima's reckless abandon, it will sooner or later bring you trouble. Bhima lowered his weapons and bowed before Kuvera, who then blessed him. O Bhimasena, may you destroy the pride of your enemies and enhance the joy of your friends. And with that, Kuvera took leave from the Pandavas as his chariot carried him high into the sky. His Yaksha and Rakshasa attendants followed him, some flying and others riding conveyances covered with finely embroidered cushions and adorned with gems. The bodies of the warriors Bhima had slain were removed, and the 5 brothers stayed on the mountain top, served and honored by the Yakshas.